Good evening, everyone. This is Shelby Tuck Horton, your Director of Education for the Association of Bridal Consultants. Tonight is our first webinar in our summer series, and our wonderful guest speaker is Lois Pearce. Lois has been around ABC for almost as long as ABC has been around. And she is the director of ethnic diversity. She's an author, she's a master wedding planner, and she's a whole lot more to this organization. But I'm going to let her tell you all about herself. So I am going to turn it over to you, Lois. Take it away.
Oh my goodness. And I'm glad to be so young. Hey, everybody, how are you? Glad to see you on this end of the second quarter. So hopefully what I share with you can give you a kick for the remainder of the year and ideas. I'm going to share my story towards the end of the presentation. It's not that it's a long story, but I think that I want you to see how I started and how I am just like you and how I walked the journey of understanding multicultural marketing. And I will preface this by saying in the past 24 hours, I think just about everything that could go awry has. So I'm crossing my fingers that everything continues with this presentation to go in a positive direction. So the world is knocking. Is your business answering the door? I think for all of these Post-its that we see on the screen, there are countries and ethnicities and cultures that are represented. And because of the internet, they're all knocking at your door now. You never know where the next client is going to come from, and it certainly doesn't necessarily have to be right next door. What we're finding in our world is that there's a lot of money that can be made in this industry. Our industry globally is $160.5 billion industry. The wedding industry here in the United States is a piece of that pie at 57.9 billion. So how much of this pie are you making? Interracial marriage is up since 1967 from 3%, now at 17%. And you may ask, so why is that important? Why should I be interested in getting a piece of that pie? Why should I be trying to prepare? With different ethnicities marrying, there are different economic levels that are coming together. And generally, some of the levels may be higher than just a traditional one culture type of wedding. So there's money to be made with recognizing that there are interracial, intermarriage, interfaith couples. It's an opportunity for growth for your business. These cultural opportunities are knocking at your door. An example is intermarriage rates between Asians and is the highest between Asians and Hispanic Americans. So, put a little pin in that and think, okay, am I serving the Asian American market or am I serving the Hispanic American market? Is there a way that I can also add this to my business? And the answer is yes, because the business is knocking and you need to know how to answer the door. This all begins with you, the business owner, with your willingness to be thoughtful in diversifying. In that, I mean, not just choosing that you're going to go after diversity, so to speak, but to be thoughtful about what is available to you, what is the areas that might be in your backyard that you might be able to tap into. Also, that you are interested in being inclusive in your marketing and sales. And by that, I mean not necessarily advertising or even writing or editing so that it has one slant, but so that everything that you're doing is inclusive, that there hopefully aren't faux pas that you are making either in writing or even in your body language. So I'm going to present this evening 6 tips for personal and business readiness. The first 3 tips are going to be about personal readiness. And then the last 3 tips are going to be about business readiness. Some of it you may have heard before. Some of this is not new. Some of this is new in the 2022 year that we live in, but all is pertinent for you to answer the door. Traditionally, we have been told about, quote unquote, the melting pot. And the original melting pot was based with Native Americans, and I'm referring this conversation to the United States. The Native Americans were in the pot. They were here. Well, they were here prior to anyone else. Oh gosh, I'm gonna stop touching my, I'm gonna stop touching my mouse because I need to go back. Okay, so the melting pot, it was considered Chinese, Irish, Italian, Mexican, and Russians that mixed with Americans, which, the British, that also were a mixture with the Native Americans. And that a few years back was called the melting pot. What we now have is the salad bowl, which are all of the ethnicities and cultures that were in the original melting pot, plus primarily Southeast and Middle Eastern Asians, Cubans, South Americans, and those from the Caribbean. So now we have this wonderful mixture of flavors and tastes and colors that are in our salad bowl of a culture. Looking at this map gives you an idea of where potentially languages are being spoken that are also opportunities for you to be able to think of, okay, so who else could I serve? And you can look at this map wherever you are, wherever you're calling from, calling into with this presentation, you can find yourself here, except for Kathy. I'm sorry, you're not here. You can find yourself here and look and see, am I serving that group? Because these are the groups that are in your area. So it's food for thought. If you look and see that there are quite a few areas where there are Chinese, and not just necessarily Asian Americans, but Chinese, and also deep penetrations of the Vietnamese. So it's a matter of not only deciding who it is that you'd like to serve, as well as what cultural group it is, but are they in your vicinity and can you help them at all? So looking at our tip number 1, I want you to take a personal inventory, because in order for you to serve someone else, you have to be able to look at what is it that may be holding you back from getting this business, either internally or even externally. So I want you to think about these 6 areas. Who do you know, or who in your circle is outside of your ethnicity? who is of a different age, who may be of a different gender, who may be of a different sexual orientation, who is in a different socioeconomic background, and who may be in a different educational stance. So you look at these and you can immediately recognize that if I'm surrounding myself with the same type of people in any of these categories, I'm only seeking a comfort zone. And what you have to recognize is when you seek that comfort zone, you're not necessarily making yourself aware of the bias outside of that comfort zone. So you want to start thinking, okay, so who else can I approach? What other age group could there be? Who else do I know that has either less education than I perceive that I have, or more education that I have? And then when you're with these people, you are able to lower the bias that you have because you're learning about these different areas. Tip number 2 is you want to expose yourself to these differences. Expand your circle of influence. And that's kind of what I was referring to with the last slide, is you want to go outside of what has been your circle of influence and find a different group to talk to get input with. Your group that you are currently talking to, they know you, or they're aware of you, you are aware of them. But once you go outside of that circle and expand it, that way you can learn a little bit more about how other people actually think. An idea is to attend an event of another community of people other than your own. And I'm going to give you an example. Last week, I went to an Italian festival that was held locally. And there was a woman that was there, and I happened to have known her husband distantly, but he really didn't know me. And we were talking, and she said to me, she said, so what brings you to this event? Which I thought was kind of an interesting question. But, you know, in preparing for this presentation, I realized, okay, I'm a Black woman who is at an Italian event on a side of town that generally Blacks aren't there. So in her mind, she wanted to know, what are you doing there? Why am I here? What's my interest? Because she even asked me, she said, so what's your connection here? And I told her, food. I'm here for the Italian food. I'm here for the music. I'm here for the culture of the church that's sponsoring this. So my attending that event enlightened her as well as helped enlighten me, because then I could see the bells going off in her head like, oh yeah, I guess this is for everybody. Human connections are important, so you want to be able to create new acquaintances. Listen to podcasts, watch TV shows, read books, and watch movies. A client that I have, she indicated that she was a movie buff. And I was, surprised because she said, I just love movies. And she said, and I love movies because I dissect them. I take an opportunity to look at the characters, where they are, what lifestyle they have, what foods they're eating, what cars they're driving, what houses they're living in, aside from just the rom-com or the thriller. She said, there's so much that you can learn just by looking at a movie. And I was like, yeah, that's really true. And when you're doing so, when you're expanding your influence, you want to listen. You want to be able to just ask questions and then be quiet, because the answers will enlighten you and help you explore differences. Sustaining attention. When you're looking at someone and you're having a conversation, you want to interpret what their face is saying. Because a lot of times, words that may come from their mouths may not match what their facial expression may be. So you want to pay attention to facial expression. When you're talking, you want to make eye contact. There are different cultures that eye contact is extremely important. And if you're not doing that, then you're considered rude. So if you don't know what someone's culture is, because you haven't had the opportunity to do your research yet, you want to begin to make eye contact with people so that they feel engaged. Also, when you are listening and you're talking and you're paying attention to someone's face, you're validating their presence. You're recognizing that they're there. You're encouraging them to see you as well. So sustain attention. Adapt your strategy. And by that, I mean, know what you're looking for. I mentioned before that you may have a particular ethnic group or religious group or a group of sexual orientation that you are interested in, but they may not be within your locale, or they may have strategies that need to be made in order to get to them. And by that, I mean some ethnicities, they do a lot within themselves. It's definitely a referral network, but if you're outside of that group and you can get into the group, you're in. They will use you over and over and over again and pass your name on to other friends and family members. But you have to adapt a strategy and know what it is that you're looking for. When I talk about cultural marketing, I am referring to the way that you package your messaging, how you are respecting the reader when they see your information either in print or if they are either listening or reading information that you have shared. And then in that, you're respecting your own business. Because when you are authentic and honest and concerned about how your message is shared, it makes a difference to different groups. So, largest and fastest growing. In the United States, the largest group are Hispanic Americans. The fastest growing group are still Hispanics and Asian Americans. I remember when I first started talking about cultural weddings and interpersonal communications, and I was saying that in the year 2025, Hispanics were going to be the majority population. And lo and behold, long before 2025, Hispanics now are the largest population in the United States. Following in the group of Asian Americans are Chinese, Filipinos, Vietnamese, Koreans, Japanese, Southeast Asians, and the Southeast Asian sector would be those from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepali. And that whole group has the highest level of education, the highest income level. They drive the most expensive cars and homes, and they're the most tech savvy. I also feel that the group that has the same sense of demographics are those of same sex. They are a great opportunity to market to. So major elements of culture, and this is where you'll hear me say steady up. I do a weekly podcast, I guess you could call it. And one of them recently I said was study up. I want you to study what other cultures say and what they do. What are some of the symbols that they use? For example, with both of those elements, you could look into artwork that is done by those ethnicities or artifacts and find out a little more about their history, because their history actually has brought them to where they are today. Understand language. The way that we speak, and when I say we, I mean Americans, the way that we speak may not be the same way that words are used around the world. So you need to understand how they use language. Very often we get to see this when it's in print and there are words that seem to be out of place, but it's how that other culture may use the words versus the way that we use the words. Understand what their norms and their values are. What may be normal for you or for Americans may not be the norm, but you need to understand what the other norms are for a particular culture and how they value those norms. What are the things that are important to them, that they within their family is important to them? For example, Japanese, they honor the senior persons in their family. And let's say you have a consultation and there's a Japanese family that comes, and it could be it could be the father, mother, it could be just the bridegroom, and they have an elder that's with them. And the elder may be the one that will actually make some of the decisions. So knowing what the values are that they have in their family can help you gear your presentation to the people that are actually making some of the big decisions. I talked about artifacts. Go to the museums, read books, look at things that will talk about history. Find out about their social organizations, their customs, their religion, the government from where they've come from, and the structure of their arts. I know that with the arts, if you look at it, it can tell you stories about the people themselves. So it's extremely informative. And then there's the hidden culture. There's the parts that you can't find by looking in a book, but you have to be in their company in order to understand how they treat time and how they communicate and how they practice their religion. It may not be something that may be printed, but it certainly is something that you can find out and be able to share. So we have an idea of culture. We know potentially what it is that which group it is that we may be interested in. But I have some suggestions for your strategy. Start off by looking in the online happenings in your local area and jot down some of the events. For example, the Italian festival that I attended, I found out about it online. It showed that it was a 4-day festival. I picked one of the days and I went. Seek out wedding businesses who also cater to that particular group. You can share information with them, and they can share information with you as to some of the nuances that a particular culture may have. And also, you want to pay particular attention to your own staff. It is almost not worth your going out and reaching out to another culture, knowing what you know, and not sharing it with your own staff. And staff doesn't necessarily, let's say you are a single or a solo entrepreneur, and you only bring on persons who work on the day of, but you want to make sure that you have a heart-to-heart conversation about where it is that you're taking your business and who you would like to take your business towards, and get their input as to how they feel about this movement. Because if you are doing so and they are not, That body language certainly speaks when you're trying to perform an event. Number 6 is show and tell. So what does your social media say in your pictures? Are your photos inclusive? Are your photos not only showing the couple that may be of a culture that you would like to work with or that you have worked with, but what about the settings? You know, we often do photo shoots and take pictures of the foods, etc. Are these foods and pictures inclusive, or are you only going towards what the person actually looks like? Be inclusive. Think of the whole picture. Language. Are your words inviting? Do you even know what the words are that can be inviting or that are cultural faux pas within a culture? In your bio, are there any inclusive words about who you would like to work with or who you have worked with, so that potential clients can say, I like the way she thinks. I think I want to work with her. So it's more than just about just pictures or just language. It's about the total package in being inclusive. Also, other wedding suppliers. When you're working as a team with others, are their messages the same tone as yours? Are they inclusive? Because we know that couples not only look at yours, but if you have a list of vendors that are potentially on your websites, they'll look at theirs also. And if they don't see the same inclusivity in their websites, then that's a reflection on you. So you want to make sure that, again, you're going out, you're making new acquaintances, you're finding people who are also inclusive in their thoughts about other cultures. So here's a bonus. Here's some resources and reasons why. Your local Chamber of Commerce, they're there to promote business. And they have after hours, or they have newsletters, or they have chat rooms that can be with people who are unlike you versus like you. So seek them out. Local minority business groups. If there's a particular group that you would like to do business with, then you want to find members who are in these minority business groups, develop some new acquaintances, and build some new relationships. And you could be invited to those meetings. They may be minority led, but it doesn't mean that they're minority exclusive. Churches, temples, and synagogues. Wow, what a first time experience to go to a place of religion that is different from yours and see the actual differences in how their worship takes place. And when you have a bride or a groom who may come to you and say that I'm getting married at, or would like to get married at such and such a place, you can say, well, yes, I attended a ceremony there, or I have been there, or, I've been in a Russian Orthodox church. And the glass is absolutely beautiful. The stained glass is actually beautiful. Again, it allows them to be able to feel more comfortable that you are of their mindset as well. Look at the 2020 census report. Bits and pieces of it are coming out. But one of the things that you can find in it are local trends. What are the cultural groups that may be moving in or out of your state, or in or out of your local area? It gives you a tip so that you're able to, again, think of, okay, so I'd like to do business with this group. Is that group here? Are they 2 towns away? Are they even in my state? The internet. I just want to caution you about the internet, and I think we all know this, but once again, I'll repeat it, is that information that's on the internet is not always the truth. Sometimes it is a stretch. But when you can find multiple sources with similar information coming from different backgrounds, it provides footing for accuracy. So don't put down the internet, just do your work, spend more time. So Lois, why do I want to do this? Really? Well, why? And the bottom line is that you're leaving money on the table, and that if you don't do it, your associate will be doing this. And to give you just some random examples of what I'm referring to, is that the Knot reported that the average wedding was $28,000 in the United States. The South Asian wedding is has a budget anywhere between $225,000 and $285,000. So if you're looking to either increase your cultural awareness or to increase the amount of money that you may be making on an event, certainly just the comparison between the American $28,000 wedding and a South Asian wedding with all its many parts and all its many components certainly can offer you an opportunity to make a little bit more money. 50%, 56% of Asians are married. So that statistic you may look at and say, but they're already married. Why do I care? 56% of Asians are married. That means they get married. So if that's a group that's getting married, that is potentially a group that you may want to go after, because you know that they're using the services that you can provide. Also, 3 in 10 US adults are religiously unaffiliated. Okay, so you ask, why is that important? If they're religiously unaffiliated, that potentially means that they're looking for a place to hold their wedding and reception that is a little off-site. They're not looking to get married in a church, a synagogue, or a temple. They're looking for a facility so that they can have everything all in one place. Here's your opportunity. You work with them, you find them a beautiful site, a beautiful garden, someplace where they actually need your services. And here is another avenue that you may not have wanted to consider, but there's money there to be made. So the world is knocking. Is your business answering the door? The 6 tips that I covered, excuse me, is to take personal inventory. Know what your personal biases are. Expose yourself to differences and have fun while learning. Go to a festival. Go to a museum. Have fun. Sustain attention when you are talking with someone else. Converse in a caring way. Keep that eye contact. Adapt your strategy, because everybody may not be your available somebody. Study up, learn the nuances, and show and tell. Don't let your knowledge and expertise be a secret. Show what you know, show what you're interested in, and let the world find you. It's in your communication. So the world is knocking. Is your business answering the door? Are there any questions?
Lois, there is one from Matthew. He asked the question, is LGBTQ plus an area for wedding planners need to look at and their cultures?
I believe so. And for the reason that I stated, particularly with same-sex weddings, there's generally a higher economic income that's there, and there's a willingness to spend the money on an event that reflects their lifestyle. So I am not one who speaks a lot about that community, because I'm still doing a lot of my own research, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But absolutely. And I think, and this is just my thoughts, that many of the groups you don't approach basically out of fear. But if you approach them with knowledge or be willing to show that you're interested, then the fear is dismayed and you can present yourself. I remember a long time ago, I received a call from a client. Well, they didn't end up being a client, but it was someone, a potential client, who wanted to know if I would be interested in helping them with their wedding. It was a lesbian couple. And my response was, sure, why not? And she said, because there are so many vendors that I've talked to. She said, I have to tell them this right up front because they don't want to do business with us. And I said, listen, my feeling is you are human, you love, and I'm in business. So I find a match. I don't find a problem with it. So yes, Matthew, yes, it is an avenue that everyone, if they feel comfortable after doing their research, and if it's something that they just don't have an objection to, because that's a personal thing. And again, that goes back to looking at your bias. Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Lois. I really appreciate it because you're speaking to one LGBTQ here, and I'm the first to know, and I'm willing to go and spread my whatever it's called out to them. I'm offering my services to them, which that's why I questioned it.
You're offering your services to the community or to the other vendors?
To the community, including LGBTQ, because what I see out of it is I had friends of mine that are gay, lesbians, transsexuals, which I'm not against because I'm gay myself. And I had people come up to me and say, well, nobody wants to marry us because we're same-sex marriage. I said, listen, like you said, you are loving, you're caring, and I'm in business. It's just what it is they all know they prefer that they want, and I mean, this is what I hear and what statistics I see, they prefer to have a same-sex wedding planner do their weddings. So they feel more into it and more comfortable. I feel that because I'm that way. I wasn't born. I said, you're not born that way. For God made you the way you are. And I work with one of my churches. Actually, I go to a church that is LGBTQ plus, and the pastor there accepts everything from transsexuals all the way down. And it kind of makes me feel good because I get to work with her as a wedding planner. So, I mean, she even looked at me and said, Matt, I thank you for your service to help me when it comes to that point, because she had clients or customers come to her saying, well, there's no one that's going to marry us. Well, I will, she said. And so she's very happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I just feel bad that the LGBTQ is not getting nothing, no expectations from a wedding planner. Most of them are, because a lot of them just don't care about it. And I think LGBTQ is a big, huge situation for every wedding planner to look into.
I agree. I mean, one of the titles of a presentation that I have is called The Color of Money is Green. I'm in business. Green is what is exchanged in the United States until cryptocurrency and Venmo and everything else. But the bottom line is that I'm in business to do business.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel that it was fair to turn anyone away.
I agree. Lois, I agree, because that's how I am. I have a heart as gold. I will do anything for I'll take my shirt off for anybody and bend backwards for them and help them out.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome, Shelby.
Lois, there's a lot of comments on how well your presentation was and how well thought out it was and how thoroughly researched it was. You gave everybody a lot of information to digest and to use at their will. And I found it very, very informative. I'm sorry that the other people didn't join us. I'm going to find out why our members sign up and they don't show up. But that's my problem, and I'll take care of that. But I'm going to turn it back over to you because I know you have closing remarks.
I hope it comes through that I am passionate about this topic. And I take my time to share the information because it is, to me, important. It's important that people treat each other well on all circumstances, and that there is basically love is in the air. We are in the business of romance, but in order to have romance, you must have communication. So let me tell you about my story. I am a native New Yorker, and as a child of the 60s, I was bused from my neighborhood to another neighborhood. And that neighborhood, I feel, was the foundation for who I am today. There were children in this school who were students of the United Nations, the ambassadors' children for the United Nations. And so I got to play with a lot of other ethnic groups that I had no idea what they were, other than the fact that they were children that were in the 5th and 6th grade. And out of that experience, my best friend at the time was Jewish. And I remember sneaking out of school to go to her house during the day to be able to sit with her grandfather and listen to his stories and to have lox and bagels. And I also remember there was a Indian, I guess it was South Asian at that. Like I said, at the time, I never thought about it. It was a child, but I went to different parties that they would have, and I just became a part of the celebration. And I think that that's what brought me to, again, because I was exposed to all of this, I wasn't necessarily fearful about making acquaintances across cultures. I was asked to be the director of ethnic diversity for the purpose at the time to share information, because culture was becoming a big thing. And I wrote the original Ethnic and Specialty Wedding Guidebook. Subsequently now, I have the rights to all of my information, and I can sell it as Wedding Customs and Traditions, which is available, that you can see on the screen at my website. And I invite each of you to get a copy of that book. No shameful plug here, just telling the truth. I want you to have this information. There's 32 chapters of various ethnic and religious culture that's in the book. I have been told by many in the industry that it is something that everyone should have. Why everybody doesn't have it, I don't know. And no, it's not available on Amazon. You have to get it through me. I am a grandmother of 8. I have been married this year coming up for 50 years. And my passion is to help others understand each other. So you see all of my social media information on the screen. So how can I help you? And there's a few ways. Number one is, if you visit my website, actually it's not even on the website, but if you use that link, www.loispearce.com/free offer, I will send you a list of LGBTA plus words and definitions. As I mentioned, I don't talk necessarily about that topic because I'm still learning, and I respect the community not to say things that I am not totally informed about. But I do think that this information is important information for you to have so that you can be comfortable in understanding the words and understanding the conversation when it is around you or when you see it on the news. So sign up, get the free offer. And I'll warn you, there are two sign-ins that you have to do, but you sign up, I get your email, I will send you the LGBTA glossary. There's also in that same sign up a question box that asks if you, and I'm asking in the question box, if you would indicate if you're interested in receiving information about my cultural nuptial masterclass. This will be a deep dive into cultures and marketing. It is close to a course that I had offered several years ago to the association, but it goes much deeper. So if you're interested in that masterclass, please put it in the question box that you're interested. Also, if you're interested in individual coaching, where I can work with you to research your area, to determine what's there, to help you craft your messages, to look at your website, to involve you in the masterclass so that you can be the expert. And when I talk about the expert, think about it. I am one person. I have been trying to share this message for many, many years. I can't be everywhere. But suppose you had a bit of the information that I have been gathering. Now you in your local area could be the go-to person about culture. The vendors could say, oh, go to Matthew, because Matthew knows about South Asian weddings, or he knows about French weddings, or he's really got connections to certain ethnic communities. You then can build your own platform different from just being a wedding planner or a florist or a photographer or a caterer as an expert in the area of culture. And I'm willing to work with you in order to help you do that. So again, buy the book, Wedding Customs and Traditions. It's $24.99 plus the tax. And for ABC members, there is also a test that comes with the book. You take the test, you pass the test, and you get credits for educational learning. So it's have fun while you're learning. So I appreciate the time to be able to sit with you and share information, and I'm always available for whatever questions you may have.
So
Lois.
before you go, we have a couple of questions, one from Kathy and one from Matthew. The one from Kathy is, are there ways you can suggest to help make sure on social media or our websites is being interpreted correctly? For example, have other friends, colleagues looked at our information and give their feedback about who we serve?
Absolutely. And I also feel that if you have, again, acquaintances that you have made, because now you're going to go out and you're going to talk to other businesses that are of other cultures, you can have them take a quick look at it and tell you whether you're on the right path. I too can, give you advice on on some of the faux pas, but definitely, is there a book that does that? Not yet. There's several multicultural marketing books that are out there. I think Noreen Dresser has one, but there are several that you can read, to find out. But, give me a call. I can always answer that question.
And Matthew wants to know if he can call you with any questions.
Absolutely.
All right.
At a certain point, it's going to cost you, but yes, you can call me.
Great.
So everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for honoring your registration and showing up. Lois, thank you so much for all that valuable information. I really appreciate that you always want to share your knowledge with all of the other ABC members. And because I like to stay on time, because I tell you these things are going to last an hour, I am going to say good night to everyone. And thank you for attending. Yes,
Shelby,
Matthew.
before we go,
Sure.
I will be emailing you direct after this.
Okay.
Just saying, hey, I attended. You can send me my certificate through through my email.
Yeah, because I'll need your email address. Because I
Yes.
already wrote myself a note to send you a certificate, but go ahead and send it to me so that I can have your email address.
All right. And then Lois, I will get to you once my website is up and done because it's to be professionally done. And then I will call you and say, hey, can you please look at this for me?
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. Lois, again, thank you. I appreciate you always.
Thank you.
Good night,
night,
everyone.
Lois.
Good night.
Good night.